Launching a Google Ads campaign is actually the easy part. Knowing what to do over the next couple of weeks is where most businesses end up going wrong. Because if you start making the wrong changes too early, you end up resetting Google's learning phase, which ends up delaying the very results that you're trying to get. But it's also not a set it and forget it platform where you can just turn it live and leave it on its own for the next couple of weeks. So in today's video, we're going to talk about why making changes too early can actually hurt your campaign, what you should be optimizing during Google's learning phase so that you don't end up wasting your budget, and how to know when you finally have enough data to start improving your keywords, your ads, and your overall performance. The biggest mistake I see people making after launching a Google Ads campaign is assuming that they need to start making all of these changes after a few days. And I think a lot of people, they tend to panic. A few days go by, they haven't generated a lead yet, and so then they go in and they're suddenly changing the budget, switching bidding strategies, adjusting targeting, rewriting their ads. The problem is that's usually the worst thing you can actually do. So when a campaign first launches, Google enters what's called the learning phase. And during this time, it is collecting data and trying to figure out who is most likely to become your ideal customer. So it needs enough impressions and clicks and conversions before it can really start making those smarter decisions. So then every major change that you make interrupts that learning process and sets it back. So instead of helping the campaign improve, you're often just delaying the very results that you're waiting for. And there is another reason that patience matters here too. Not every conversion is going to happen the same day that somebody clicks on your ad. So some people click today, then they'll go and compare a couple of businesses over the next week, and only then they decide to reach out. That means that the newest data inside of your account is often incomplete. So a campaign can look like it's underperforming when in reality, some of those conversions just haven't happened yet. So in those first couple of weeks, resist the temptation to constantly tweak your campaign. Give Google the stable data that it needs first. Then you'll be making optimizations based on real information instead of reacting to incomplete results or not having the conversions that you want immediately. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just ignore your campaign for weeks. The biggest thing that I recommend doing during this learning phase and in the early stages, especially of a campaign running, is checking your search terms report. This report shows you the actual searches that people typed into Google before clicking on your ad. And this is one of the quickest ways to improve the quality of traffic coming through your ads. So when you're looking at this list, you're looking for searches that don't really match your business. Maybe they're searching for a competitor or a service that you don't offer, or they're looking for how to do the job themselves instead of hiring somebody. So when you find those kind of searches in the report, you want to add them as negative keywords. And I like to think of negative keywords kind of like adding bumpers on a bowling alley. So Google is trying to roll the ball down the lane toward your ideal customer. But in the beginning, it's going to bounce around a little bit while it learns who those people are. So then every negative keyword that you add acts like one of those bumpers that is gently nudging Google back towards the people who are actually looking for what you offer. And then over time, those small adjustments make a really big difference. You end up wasting less budget on irrelevant clicks, and Google gets a much clearer understanding of what a good customer actually looks like. Then once your campaign has been running for a while and you've built up enough data, now you can start making the bigger optimization decisions. Usually minimum, let 30 days go by depending on how popular your services are, but you want a good amount of clicks and impressions in there before you start tweaking some of these bigger things. So the first place that I would look is your keywords. Are there keywords that are spending a good chunk of money but not generating leads? If you've given them enough time and enough clicks, then it might be time to pause them. At the same time, go back to your search terms report. Sometimes you'll notice certain search terms that consistently generate good leads, but they're not added as keywords into your account yet. So those are great candidates to add as new keywords so that you can get even more visibility on those searches. The important thing is that you're letting the data make these decisions, not your gut feeling after a couple of days. And sometimes people assume that Google Ads isn't working when the real problem is actually the website. So even a well-optimized campaign will struggle if the landing page lets people down. So your page needs to load quickly, it needs to immediately reassure visitors that they're in the right place, and it needs to have a clear, easy call to action. Sometimes improving your landing page will have a bigger impact on your cost per lead than changing anything inside of the Google Ads account. So in those early days, you can also optimize your landing page, making sure that it is working fast, that it is mobile friendly, that it has a clear H1 title that matches your ads. Sometimes it's not the ads set up themselves that is broken or not working. Sometimes it's the page that you are leading them to. Once your campaign is generating a steady flow of data, then you can also start testing your ad copy. Ideally, when you first launch your campaign, you want to have 2 ads running so that you are A/B testing different verbiage or different headlines and descriptions together. I did do a whole other video on how to do this as well a couple weeks back, so feel free to go check that one out. But instead of constantly editing one ad, you want to A/B test your ads continuously. So ideally, you should have 2 ads running at the same time per ad group so that you can test different messaging or keyword insertions, location insertion, all the different things like that. Then over time, you pause the weaker performing ad and continue building on that stronger one. But one really important rule when you're testing is only change one thing at a time. So a lot of advertisers change all of their headlines, all of their descriptions, and then when the performance change, they don't really know what one variable made that happen. So instead, ideally, you want to focus on one change at a time. Measure the results, let it run, measure the results, then move on to the next test. And so that's how real optimizations do happen and how you can refine the campaign over time. These small improvements made consistently over time. And if you're setting up a brand new Google Ads search campaign, or if you're wondering whether yours was built the right way to begin with, I put together a complete step-by-step walkthrough where I build an entire search campaign from scratch and explain every setting along the way. So click right here and I'll walk you through that whole process. I'll see you over there.